Right, brilliant. Okay, hello to everyone. Hi to all of you that came last week and have returned to join me, and hi to those of you that haven't been in the Running Bear Live kitchen before but have come along today to help me with the Thai curry. Based on last week, just briefly while I'm waiting for everyone to come in, we had a fantastic week making the healthy flapjacks. Thank you so much to everybody who sent in photographs to me, who sent in lovely comments, and I just love some of the brilliant ideas. We did pick a winner. It was a difficult one, but Joss Naylor, you were my winner from last week. Your flapjacks looked amazing. So I'd like you to DM as at Running Bear Shop, and I will make sure your Running Bear socks get to you ASAP. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just to get started. Okay, there's going to be lots of time. This is about 20 minutes long. There's going to be loads of time to talk to you about the amazing ingredients I'm using, but I want to just get started with you all. So the first thing we're going to do is, you know me, I'm a one pot stop. So look, very well used, I don't mind showing you. Fantastic heavy based frying pan. If you haven't got a frying pan, use a big old saucepan or something similar. And the first ingredient we're using is the coconut oil. Now, I'll talk to you a little bit about this. I'm going to get it onto, if I can open it up, I'm going to get it on. Okay, here we go. So it's obviously set at room temperature, which we'll come to. I've set a couple of tablespoons of this lovely stuff, and we're just going to melt that down. It melts really, really quickly. So get your, I won't spill my fish sauce on you all. Get your coconut oil straight on medium to high heat for me, and we'll just melt that down really quick. It really won't take too long. Okay, so the first ingredient when we've melted our coconut oil is going to be our onion or shallot. I put down 2 shallots on the recipe card, or 1 onion, and then when I went to buy my shallots, I realised how tiny they are at the moment. So if you're using shallots, they're a little bit stronger than onions, so you don't need the same amount. But I effectively say about 4 shallots if they're my size. I know some of you will have fabulous farm shops and amazingly massive shallots. So about that much, or an onion. And if you remember from last week, I always say pick the darkest version of anything. So I always go with red onions where I can, but any onion will do if you've only got your white ones. Okay, so my coconut oil is now melted down. So I'm going to add my shallots to that, or your onions, and we're going to start frying them off so that they're nice and soft. So pop them in. Those of you that are cooking with me, brilliant. Those of you that are going to do this for later on or later on in the week, don't forget to send me your photographs. The next ingredient we're going to add to that is our chicken, or if you're doing the plant-based, your butternut squash. What we're going to do, we're going to give them a couple of minutes to soften. I have put free-range chicken. Now, I know it costs extra. However, I've looked into this and I've researched it a lot. The benefit of free range, not only the benefit to the animal, but to you eating it, is the nutrients. It's much more nutrient dense. They're fed better, they're looked after better, they retain higher levels of nutrients, and scientifically, they are lower in fat. So, if you can, and I got mine on offer yesterday, so if you can find the free range, then go with that. Otherwise, obviously go with what you can find. The butternut squash, well done if you've picked butternut squash and cubed it all. Personally, I'm just going to go with the ones in the pre-bags that have been diced for me. So if you've got that all prepared, hopefully, I've pre-diced my chicken. Again, down to your preference really. Most of mine are around about 1.5 inches cubed for cooking time reasons, but if it's slightly larger, you might just need to make sure you cook it a little bit longer, okay? I can hear my onions frying away. Can you hear them in the background? I hope so. So they're softening down nicely. I've diced mine super, super small today so that they cook really, really quickly. And I'm going to add in now the chicken. And of course, if you're doing plant-based, the butternut squash at this stage. So in that goes, I'm going to pop that back on while I talk to you about the ginger. To keep it over a medium to high heat for me, we're wanting to basically just caramelise and colour the edges of either the chicken or the butternut squash. So you need quite a high temperature in order to do that. And again, just make sure if you're using hopefully a nice big wide frying pan or wide saucepan that you don't bunch everything together because you'll sweat it. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that all of the individual pieces of chicken are evenly cooked and evenly coloured, okay? So, ginger, ta-da, 4 centimetres, who could be bothered to measure? It's basically that bit there. So what? 3/4 of your little finger? Around about that. And all I do, I actually put on this peel it. I don't know why I did that. I never peel it. It's a lovely thin papery bit. Why on earth would you waste having to get your peeler out, wash it? And as you know from last week and from when I've been at question and answer, there's always loads of goodies in the outside of whole fruit. So there'll be some benefits in that and we won't taste it in this recipe. And so I'm going to go straight to grate. And again, 4 centimetres. Just grate that down. I absolutely love the smell of ginger. I add it to my smoothies. I add it to so much food. And of course, it's very authentic for Thai cooking. And it's absolutely packed with micronutrients. So that didn't take me very long. So there we go. Your grated ginger. If you're cooking with me now, I wish we had smell-o-vision, but if you're cooking with me now, I'm now in the mood to eat Thai. So we're going to add that. Let me bring over my saucepan. At this stage, guys, you may just want to turn your butternut squash and your chicken. So as you can see, they're all just colouring up nicely. The onions are sweating. I don't want them to go too dark in this recipe. Don't worry if they do. But we're just basically colouring each piece. Let me add the ginger. And then straight back on the heat while we talk about the next stage. Right, so next we're going to be adding the key flavouring, and I was debating whether or not I should make a paste with you, but the point of this recipe is it's supposed to be super easy, super simple, and most importantly very healthy. So I thought, right, this is the one I use, and I'm going to explain why, because I know that packet sauces, etc., get a really bad name, and on the whole that's right, they are. But this one, and there will be others, is all fresh ingredients. So there's no preservatives, there's no artificial colours, there's none of the baddies that we find in some of them. Keep it in the fridge, keep it in your freezer if you've opened it and you don't intend to use it for months. And obviously you can buy it and store it in your cupboard before you open it. So it's always going to be available. And I think for me, that is so key about quick cooking, just having convenience and accessibility. If you're super good at Thai or you're a brilliant chef and you want to make your own paste, then by all means do so. So we're going to go for 2 to 3 tablespoons. I had a text from Rick at Running Bear, for those of you that know Rick, earlier on, saying, is it going to be spicy? And I think the point of this is you can make it as spicy as you want. If you want it to be really spicy, you can obviously add more of this. You can add some chilli, or you can go for the green Thai curry version, which is actually stronger in this particular paste. So you can adjust it to your flavourings. Personally, I think 2 to 3 tablespoons is probably right for the average family. But of course, if you like your food hot, add extra spice. Right, let's add some of this and let's get some colour. So by now, my chicken pieces have all turned a nice white opaque colour, but we're going to make them red because it's a red Thai curry. So I'm going to tip this in and then I'm going to show it to you guys. So I've gone with my 2 to 3 tablespoons of red curry paste. And then, am I right in thinking it was 2 teaspoons? I don't want to check my recipe, but I'm pretty certain it is. So 2 teaspoons of yellow curry powder. Now again, if you like it hot, add a bit more. You can always, with the curry powder or the paste, wait till you've made it. And if it's really not hot enough for you, you can get away with adding a bit more now. This is going to catch the back of my throat. So now you can just see I'm stirring in. We're getting those amazing colours. It smells amazing in this kitchen. I hope those of you cooking with me, it's smelling amazing in yours as well. And I'm going to put that back on the heat now. Just allow that all those flavours to caramelise and cook together before we add the coconut milk. Just going to give that about 20-30 seconds to do all its goodies. Okay. Coconut milk. I've put coconut milk or coconut cream, and that's basically down to your calories. Personally, the coconut milk's fine, it's what we usually use. But if you're either thinking I need to add more calories today because of being on a super long run, or or likewise, you're watching your calories because it was just a conditioning run, then obviously choose accordingly. I've gone for standard coconut milk. I don't use the low fat one because basically it's just water or more watery, so it tends to split more in this dish. I just say use a bit less and use a bit more stock if you're really, really being careful, rather than use the light coconut milk. It will just split and it just won't look as good. Okay, let me get that off and let me just very quickly check that I'm on. Yeah. Okay, so now the chicken is really doing well, and I know that the butternut squash version will be doing something very similar, and I'm just going to add the coconut milk into this. So we literally just pour it in. I love coconut milk. Okay, the brilliance of coconut milk, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more now. Okay, so just stir that in. Just kind of scrape all those little goodies around from the side, off the bottom. And we can just see that coconut milk turning that gorgeous red Thai curry flavour. Okay, so let me pop that back on so the chicken carries on cooking. I'm going to add the fish sauce in just 1 second. Coconut milk, it has a bad reputation, as does coconut oil. I understand it's effectively pure fat, so for a majority of people or those that are trying to lose weight or anything, it's a bit of a no-go. For athletes, there is key benefits to coconut milk, coconut oil over different fats, and that's mainly down to the fact it is a saturated fat, but its makeup, I'm not going to get too scientific with the terminology, means that it's used much more effectively than it is stored by the body. So it sort of goes past the fat storage and is used far better than other forms of saturated fats in terms of being burnt as calories. And so if we're burning it off, which you will have done if you've all been for a run, this is going to be great. It's also fantastic for those of you who have got a lactose intolerance, and obviously if you're plant-based. So it's kind of a win-win in my book. And it's a healthy fat, and we do need our healthy fats. So we've got that. Okay, now, if there's one flavour that will take you to Thailand, it is fish sauce. If you haven't used it before, it is a little bit scary and it doesn't smell great, okay? And I know the name isn't great either, and I know we're not even making a fish dish today, but I promise you, you don't need a lot, but it will make any dish taste authentically Thai. So please don't be scared of it, and please add it. Don't get the measurements wrong. It's 2 teaspoons, not tablespoons. The vegetarians, would you believe, I know it's a little ironic, but there's a vegetarian fish sauce that I've put on the recipe card as well. It's really simple and similar, and it tastes exactly the same. So please go and get some. It's super easy. You can find it in most supermarkets. So we're going to add 2 teaspoons of this now. Now, I don't know about all yours at home who are cooking with me, but this is bubbling away. It is now the colour of a Thai curry, and we're not far away from it being made. So this is how easy it is to make amazing Thai food. Right. 2 teaspoons, that's the little one. Don't get it wrong. Watch me tip the whole lot in now. I'm not going to show you my saucepan just in case I do. They come with brilliant little shakers, so you can't go too far wrong. Okay, 2 teaspoons. If you're doing it now, I know it smells like this is not Thai, but I promise you, when you stir it in, it changes. Okay, let me put that back on. We're not far from it being done, but I want to talk through a few of the final things and the importance of them to our diet. I'm going to turn it down slightly now, guys, because everything's bubbling away nicely. So I've turned it to a sort of medium rather than medium-high now, and that's just going to keep on poaching the chicken, cooking down that butternut squash. With the butternut squash, the chicken's going to be ready in about another 5 minutes now, because my pieces were about an inch and a half. The butternut squash, depending on how big you've cut it, the little pre-diced ones, similar time. But what I would recommend you do is either with a toothpick or the end of a metal skewer, just push it in. And as long as there's no resistance, they're cooked. Or just take one out and taste it and just make sure first. Okay, we've done the bulk of our cooking today, so we're not far off, but there's a few key ingredients we're going to add. We're going to put some spinach in, and then we're going to garnish it. With the spinach, that's a really big bag. I'm only going to put half of that in. I've said around 100 grams. Why do we leave it till the very, very end? Spinach cooks down in literally no time. It will wilt in this in 20, 30 seconds and be good to go. You're best off eating spinach when it's raw. So most of the micronutrient content is, have we got questions coming in? What's the questions?
Did they miss the stock? So was there any stock on?
Thank you. We haven't, the stock is here. And actually, I'll show you some now. I was going to say about the stock, the amount of stock you use, I've said 180 mils, which we're going to put in. If you like more of a broth or a ramen sort of style, so lots and lots of sauce and a little bit less thick, then you can obviously just increase the amount or add water after this. Likewise, if you just like it super creamy, just a tiny bit or not at all. Chicken or vegetable stock, so you can go with either. Obviously, if you're plant-based, go with the vegetable, but you can go with either on the chicken version. Let me go and get it off and we'll add the stock. Thank you for reminding me. I'm glad that some of you are keeping an eye on me out there. Okay, so I've just obviously done 180 mils there. I say in the recipe we add it gradually. The reason we add it gradually is so that it doesn't split with the coconut milk. You don't want to add it all together, all cold. You'll end up with all sorts of congealed sauce. So just really gradually add it. Now, I'm not going with much. I'm going with the 180. So based on the fact that I know this will work, it's going straight in. I'll just give it a little stir and then that's going straight back on my hob. The beauty of the stock is, if you're going to keep it now on like a low simmer till you eat it later on, you can just top it up. So it doesn't matter. And again, like I say, even if you take it out tomorrow and you want to have it more soupy, you can just add more water, more stock, and it'll be good to go. Right, where were we? So, down to the spinach. Spinach needs nothing at all. We're literally going to add that in the last few minutes before we serve it. It's rammed, jammed, packed full with nitrates, which are so important for us athletes. They're amazing. We talk about them all the time in beetroot, in all of our dark leafy greens, and we want to retain as much of that as possible. The beauty of putting it in this is we add it right at the very end, just before we eat it. And also, anything that leaks out of it is going into the sauce, which assumedly we're going to eat as well. So as long as we don't cook it to high heaven on a really high heat, we're still going to get a lot of the goodness. And the other benefit from this is the iron. Those of you that have read on in the recipe will know that we're going to garnish it shortly with some lime cheeks, and I'm going to squeeze some in. Not only is lime a key Thai citric fruit, so it really brings out all the lovely flavours, and if you've been to a Thai restaurant, they use it on everything, but it's full of vitamin C. And when we add vitamin C with iron, along with an iron product, we help non-hemi iron. So those of you that were my question and answer, non-hemi meaning not coming from the meat form of iron, needs a little bit of help for us to absorb it, so we use vitamin C. So in this recipe, I'm combining the spinach with the lime. It works the same with your breakfast fortified cereals and a glass of orange juice, the vitamin C from the orange. So it's the combination of the two. And then we've obviously got the nuts as well. Now the nuts are going to be a fantastic form of not only our fats, but our protein, which is particularly important for those of us who are doing the plant-based version of this. Okay, so there we go. I've gone for cashews. If you don't like cashews, choose a different nut you do like. And again, they're optional. So obviously any nut allergies, or if you're not certain, or if you're cooking for other people, leave them off or leave them on the table and people can garnish themselves. Okay, let's get this curry off and see how we're getting on with it. Hopefully those of you that are cooking at home are having similar results to me. So I know that this is now cooked through. I'm just going to give it a little stir just to make sure that all of the fantastic vegetables, etc., are off the bottom. Okay, let me just talk you through now. So the plant-based are going with the butternut squash. I'm cooking the chicken version today. There's no reason you can't have both. So if you really like butternut squash and chicken, it works together. I've done that before and it's amazing. Similarly, they cook at similar times, as long as your butternut squash are those nice little light 2 centimetre square ones that you can pre-buy. Definitely pre-buy them. Equally, if you're not a fan of butternut squash, clearly you can do sweet potato, whatever vegetables you're into really will work in this. Experiment, let me know. Obviously we're using spinach as well, so that's brilliant in it. But any real vegetable, and again, you might have to amend the cooking time based on that particular vegetable, but it's all good. It's a recovery meal, so if we go back to my earlier question and answers with recovery meals, we're looking for replacement of the carbohydrate, which we've done brilliantly with not only the rice, I'll come to that in a minute, but also the sauce. We've got carbohydrates in some of the vegetables, we've got carbohydrates in even the coconut milk. The protein is coming from the chicken, around 30% protein coming from the chicken. In the vegetarian version, we're looking at the milk, and also I want to talk to the vegetarians about maybe adding some tofu or some tempeh if they want to raise the protein. They've got the nuts as the garnish, so obviously be generous with the nuts. And then an alternative to the rice, which I've referenced in the recipe, could be to use the quinoa, which, as most plant-based people know, is a really good source of protein. So I haven't done the rice today because, first of all, those of you that are cooking with me now probably don't want to eat just yet. And also, if you're following different rice recipes, it's different times, etc. So I'll show you what I've done and how long it's taken me to cook. But I would say recommend, work from your packet instructions. Okay, so we've added everything we need. I'm just going to put in my spinach now. So I'm going to use about half a bag, which is about 100 grams. It looks a lot, but when you cook spinach down, it goes to absolutely nothing. So be generous because, as I say, there's so much good in it. We'll just give that a stir around and it will literally just wilt in. I'm going to lift it up in a minute just to show you how quick this cooks. And again, it's almost like I'm not cooking it, I'm just warming it through, wilting it down so it retains all of its goodies. And then obviously, even whilst you're plating it up, it's still cooking in the heat of this coconut milk. If you're making this now, I should have said this, but you're not eating it for a while, you don't have to add the spinach now. As long as you don't forget about it, you can add it much closer to cooking time. Okay, let me just show you how quickly that has done what I wanted it to do and how pretty it looks, because we eat with our eyes as well. So, voila, the spinach is cooked. And that took what, 30 seconds? Less than a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put some in a dish. I'll actually show you my rice as well. I know brown rice scares a lot of people. It scares my family too. It is obviously a bit different. It tastes a little bit nuttier. The reason we use it, particularly with athletes, is that this is a complex carbohydrate. So not only is it going to restore your energy levels on a more constant and keep your blood levels, sugars more constant for longer, but it's more nutrient dense and it has a higher satiety from its fibre content. So all round, it's a better carbohydrate for you guys. The only time you hear me talk about the creamy carbs, i.e. the baddies, is just before races where your body needs that immediate hit of energy and you don't want any fibre because it's going to sit on your gut when you're running. But we're now doing a recovery meal, so it's really good to get in the complex carbohydrate. If it's really not for you, fine, sub it out, use white rice if that's what you're going to have. Maybe mix up some brown in it, because you'd be amazed you could do a half and half and you probably wouldn't notice a huge difference, or try the quinoa. Right, let me just put some of that in a dish. Be creative with your Thai dishes, everybody. I'm just going to put a few spoonfuls of that. I would say, depending on the length of run you've had, around about, I think 60 grams of dry rice is recommended per person. But if you've done a massive run, you might want to go up to 80, 85 grams per person of the rice to make sure you're getting your carbohydrate amounts in. Now, let's pop some of this in a dish. And then I haven't forgotten about my fabulous limes. So, again, this recipe says it's for 4 people, and it is for 4 people, but if it's 2 hungry runners, that's probably about right. It all depends on what length of run you've done. Give it a generous squeeze of lime before it even goes to the table, and that will just work in with all the flavours and also obviously the spinach. And then what I would recommend is put some lime wedges on there as well. So let me just quickly slice up a gorgeous lime. Probably get about 6 cheeks of lime from one. Okay, and that's plenty per serving to make sure that you have your vitamin C to break down the iron in the spinach. Okay, and then lastly, let's not forget about the two final garnishes. So we have our nuts and our coriander. If you don't like coriander, and I know it's a love-hate, I personally love it, and it's, again, it's authentically very Thai, just leave it out, or go for maybe a Thai basil, but slice it really, really thin because it's quite strong. We're going to put that on last because it's an amazing colour as well. Back to the nuts, magnesium. It's the forgotten micronutrient. We talk a lot about iron, we talk a lot about calcium, but nobody talks about magnesium, and it's so, so important. Not only does it help with ATP, which is our body's energy system, so it's really good pre-run, it also, without it, a deficiency in it, you'll end up with a much problem with your lactic threshold. So you'll end up with fatigue, muscle soreness. Nobody wants that. You runners, I know it's a common complaint. You need to up your magnesium. This recipe is magnesium dense. It comes from the nuts, it comes from the rice, and it comes from the spinach. Don't forget your magnesium, and it's great recovery when all your muscle synthesis is going on. So let's be generous with our nuts. Nice sprinkling of the nuts on there. And then finally, a lovely garnish of your coriander. And I'm going to just lift that up to show you. I don't know how long that's taken. I've been too busy cooking. But there is your Thai curry, okay? I know a lot of you will be dialing out takeouts at the moment, and that's wonderful in terms of support. But if you're just looking for a really quick recovery meal, this is a brilliant one. The other thing to say, you can make this in advance. So those of you who've cooked it now and don't want to eat it till later, you can switch it off. You can put a lid straight over it now and just come back to it and rewarm it later on. Or if you've got loads and loads of stock and you like it like that, you can keep it really, really gentle cooking through, particularly if your butternut squash isn't quite cooked yet. If you don't finish it all, and I doubt very many of you won't, you can freeze it, but freeze it on the day for me. And the other thing I wanted to tell you is you can do it with prawns and fish and loads of other options. So I'm hoping you've all been inspired to cook Thai with me. I've loved doing it with you. If you've got any questions, then by all means, I know we've had a few come through today. You can send them to me at Justine O'Donnell _ or you can go to the @RunningBear shop and I will come back. And what am I going to say now? Don't forget, I want photographs. I want photographs from those of you who've made it now. I want those of you that make it in the week, because I'm offering another pair of Running Bear socks to the person I choose as the winner. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you like the flavour. You can spice it up. You can lower the spice. Thank you very much for everybody joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Have a lovely weekend.